I was using a walking stick sometimes, and I did think there must be something better out there, and then made a walking stick in my oven at home and moulded it round a wine bottle. One day I decided I would see what it felt like to say, oh, I've got a business and I make them. People will no longer go to them and say, what's wrong with you? People will go, oh my God, love your stick.
Lyndsay, welcome to Disabled and Proud. How are you today?
I'm amazing. I'm absolutely above average. As we in the office, we give ourselves a mark out of 10 every day. So we'll come in, I'll say, give me your number. And I said I was a solid 7 today, which is pretty good.
Oh, I love that every morning you go in, you're like, yeah, today I'm an 8, today I'm a 9. I love that.
One of them came in and said 8.5, and we were like, whoa, what did you do last night then? Where did that half come from?
Yeah. I think I might implement that into my own office, actually. I think that's quite a good way of like gauging how the day's going to go.
It works. And if someone comes in and says, look, I'm a shitty 2 and I'm shutting the door on it, and you go, right, okay, then we can help you with that. And at least we know, you're having a bad day. It really actually does work. It sounds daft, but it works.
No, I love it. So first question.
No, Brooke, first question, give me your number.
Today I'm like a good 8.59.
Yeah, that's really
I'm feeling good. Yeah,
good. I like that. I'm happy for that. Yeah.
What about you? What is your number today?
I was a solid 7, but I'm actually going up as the day goes on because I was quite drowsy, but I feel a bit more invigorated now. So I could be just behind you at a good solid 8 now.
Oh, see, this is like, and this, maybe this should be a podcast question, because then it really tell me where the conversation's going to go. Because if someone comes in at there at 2 and I'm going to be like, got to reschedule. Sorry, babes.
That's right. There's nothing I can do for you today. I'm really sorry.
Exactly. So my first question that I ask absolutely every single person is, how do you refer to your disability?
I refer to it in different ways. When I was walking, because I used to be an ambulatory amputee. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm an above knee amputee. And I used to call myself a monoped. Yeah, and it was true. Monoped. I had one leg, and I still have. But I refer to myself as amputee, disabled with various chronic illnesses that are too numerous to mention and too gruesome to talk about. So, but with me, because I'm a visible amputee, people, it kind of, I don't know how you find it, but it kind of lets you off the hook quite a lot. People don't really need to ask you because they can see what your disability is. So sometimes having a visible disability can be quite useful.
I have it where summertime, amazing, because like I'm very happy in who I am. I wear my clothes. It doesn't really bother me. But in winter, that's when I find that most people are shocked to see that I'm disabled, because obviously like we're wearing jumpers, we're wearing jackets.
Yeah.
And obviously as you take a layer off, people are like, oh. And then because they're only just realizing, and then they feel guilty because they've made an assumption.
Yeah.
That's when people are like, oh my goodness, like you are disabled. And I'm like, yes, it's always been this way.
Yeah. Don't make it. Don't make it. Big whoop. What does Ted Lasso say? Big whoop.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's really interesting what you say is that sometimes having a visible disability, like you are right, sometimes it can let you off the hook because it's there, and you don't need to, and not that anybody should ever feel the need to explain their disability, because that's not what it's about, but actually because it's so visible, you kind of can't miss it sometimes.
Completely. Yeah. So people just pass you by, and if they want to have a conversation about, what's wrong with you, they'll go to the poor person that's walking along with a walking stick and have a, go and question them. Some people do. Why do people do that? Why do they feel that they can walk up to someone and go, oh, what happened to you then? What's wrong with you? I mean, I get that sometimes about what happened. How did you lose your leg?
Yeah.
And I just say I was ill, which I was. But, sometimes if I'm feeling up to it, I'll make up a story. And, I was skydiving and it was a shark and it was all this, but quite often I just think, just mind your own business, please. And move on.
It's super interesting that quite a lot of the general public feel like disabled people owe them an explanation.
Yeah.
And what I've put it down to is that because sometimes disabled people can look very different from average Joe Blogs, is that because it's different, people can't compute anything until they know the reason as to why. So they can almost avoid the same situation happening to them. And that's essentially what I think I've boiled it down to, is that people are super curious, but to avoid it happening to them,
so
which I think is absolutely fascinating.
So it's advice, and it's a lesson on what not to do. Otherwise, you'll catch what I've got. And I think you're never going to catch what I've got, mate, because this isn't catching, the one leg thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, I've had this conversation with a few people, and they've been like, actually, that point is so true, because
it makes sense.
The amount of time people have been like, well, what happened to you? Or I'll make sure I won't do that, or like, oh, that was silly of you, or that is inherently traumatic. Like, what a terrible response if I'm telling you about some trauma that I had. What a silly thing to do. Thank you so much for thank you for invalidating my experience, but also it's almost a warning, and in that there's something quite morbid about it, really.
No, and you just wish that people would mind their own business and spend their time asking something a bit more constructive, because I am in a wheelchair and I have one leg, but how about asking me what I do? Do you work? Do you have a job? Have you been on holiday this year? Anything that you would ask to any other person if you just met them in a cafe and you were just chatting. Ask anything that's just like an absolutely regular question. Don't go in for the big kill on the, what happened to you?
Yeah. So interestingly, because you're an amputee, and I usually go to talk about childhood, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily appropriate here, because, I mean, I could be absolutely making an assumption, but I can't imagine that your childhood involved disability until you then had your amputation when you became ill. But I was wondering, because you acquired your disability, was there disability in your life before you acquired your disability?
I began with childhood arthritis. So it was around, pain was around, having operations and using crutches was around. So that kind of thing had been in my life since I was about 14. But as for permanent disability, no, not really. It didn't knock on my door till I was like 40, 42. Which came as quite a shock. But fortunately, I did have, all those previous years of dealing with pain, because what I went through was extremely painful. But no disability in the family. No, I never knew anybody in a wheelchair. Certainly never knew anyone that was an amputee. So to actually be in a room where the word amputation was said to me the first time filled me with utter horror, because to me, I imagined it was the worst thing that could possibly happen. But at the time, the worst thing had already happened already, because my leg had become permanently disabled anyway at that time. And actually losing it, because between the illness, I caught an MRSA infection in hospital during surgery. So and after 3 years of living with the leg that they'd saved, I just decided I can't do this anymore, get rid of it, because I'd already lost the leg effectively. So people were saying, oh, amputation is a big decision. You shouldn't have to make this decision. It's too big. Don't know how you manage. And it was quite easy, because the leg wasn't a team player. It was holding me back in everything that I did and wanted to do. So actually getting rid of it was just quite a relief in the end. So I'd lost the leg 3 years previously, when I became ill. But it was a big shock. The whole amputation thing, shock for my family. I had 2 young children. It was difficult, but you find your tribe. I found my people, and when that happened, it was liberating. It was just so empowering for me. I found my people. I don't know whether you know this. When I went and trained to be a circus performer for the Paralympics, and there was a big group of us, of disabled people, and they changed my life.
I think that there's so much strength in realizing that part of your body just doesn't work for you. Like there's a lot of strength in that, because a lot of people, as you're right, hearing amputation, it's quite scary. And part of me wonders, is that because our main like source of knowledge or like representation of amputation often comes from like wartime films? Very, very rarely in the media do you see a story much like yours where actually it's the best decision that could happen to you, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it at the time. 2 years down the line, it's the best thing that ever happened, or 5 years down the line. But very, very rarely do we see it as a positive thing.
Yeah.
And it can't have been easy to make that decision, because it's not an easy decision for anybody to make. But because that representation's not there, then having to almost like explain your reasoning to people who like, close family, close friends, people who are involved in your life, it must have been quite a shock for them as well, for you to be like, actually, like, I've made the decision, it's going to come off.
It was, because to them, you're talking to perfectly able-bodied people. Losing a limb is like the worst thing that could possibly happen to them, but they had gone through the trauma of what I'd suffered being ill, and then the consequent leg that I was left with after I'd had this infection, which was ridiculous. I couldn't bend it, I couldn't walk on it, it was painful, it was just ridiculous. It did nothing for me, it just held me back. And I'm a big I like to make progress. I don't like to look at something that is only going to decline. I will look at it and go, well, how can I make that better then? And the leg, every time I looked at it, was only ever going to get worse. Ironically, to a point where it would probably be amputated anyway. So that helped me along the journey, thinking, it's probably going to go anyway. So let me take the power back. And instead of all this stuff happening to me, I'm going to make this happen, and I'm going to take the power back, make the decision. Off it went, and I learned to walk. And I had an amazing few years of, I knew it would be limited to the number of years that I would be super active, but I really was super active. And then, of course, the rest of me started falling apart. But you can't write it, can you?
No, it's very true. I always think that, how people have like 5-year, 10-year plans. And I think if you have that for you, that is absolutely wonderful, and that's absolutely great. But if you look back 5 years ago from now, everything that you thought that you were going to achieve, do whatever, is completely different, and the path is completely separate from where you've ended up. Like, did I ever think that I would be hosting a podcast talking to all types of different people around the world all about their disability 5 years ago? Probably not. But here we are. So like, actually, I think having a path where like sometimes it's really unknown is actually way more fun. I
think it is, because when I lost my leg, I just decided that I would say yes to everything. I became this yes person. So it was I was getting emails from I was with an agency called Amputees in Action, and they fund work for amputees. So I was going off pretending to have been just blown up in a bomb blast for the SAS or for the army, or for dressed up with a leg that squirted blood. It was amazing. And I was going, yes, I'll do that. Will you go here to do it? Yes, of course, I'll go there to do it. And I did that for a few years. And then I got this bizarre email from them saying that the Olympic Committee were looking for people to train for the ceremonies, for the Paralympic ceremonies for 2012. Am I interested? So yes, of course I'm interested. Didn't know what it involved, didn't know anything. And then that turned out that I trained to be a circus performer, doing crazy stupid things. Lyndsay, will you do this stunt? Yes, of course I will. Are you afraid of heights? Well, I don't know really, but yes, I'll say yes. Just say yes. So it led me down the most amazing avenues that I would never have gone down had I not that leg amputated, because all that leg was doing was holding me back. So actually freeing myself from it just opened up a whole world of possibilities, and led me down the avenue of creating the business as well. So I agree with you. I think just the twists and turns, it's that picking up the phone and you never know what the call is going to say. There's an excitement to it, and I still get a real buzz out of that. I love it.
I think it's so wild that you trained as a circus performer. I think that that's just absolutely incredible.
I ran away to the circus. I did,
Yeah.
literally, for 6 months. I ran away to the circus and trained. That say there was 40 of us of varying disabilities. There were
Mhm.
blind people, deaf people, amputees, people of short stature. There was people with cerebral palsy. There was, just you name it. We were all
Yeah.
there. The biggest. Look, we were all broken people. We were just there just to do, to learn and to do our best. And none of them gave in. And I'm sure that along the way they were expecting some people to actually give up and give in the
Yeah.
training. But yeah, nobody actually gave in because we're so strong. We trained 5 days a week for 6 months to do these ceremonies, and it was
Yeah.
just crazy. But it was the best time. It was great.
Yeah. I just think, like, I always think about, in another life, would I have loved to have been a circus performer or alternatively a gymnast? Just because I think, like, how cool would it be to be able to, like, be so bendy? And what I've come to realize is that I'm just not bendy at all. I snap like a twig.
Costumes are great as well. That was one of the best bits. We were getting to dress up in like
Yeah, I
lycra
bet.
costumes, have wacky makeup done and stuff. It was just amazing. It was, and just to, you see, you're wrong. If you say you're not bendy, then you just do something else, because that was what we all did. If you couldn't do what the traditional thing was, you just did it your way. And
Yeah.
everybody had their own way of doing things. So yeah, you see, even non-bendy twig people would be fine. You wouldn't have snapped. Or if you'd snapped, it would have been part of your act.
Yeah, it just would have been part of it. Like, oh, that
Yeah,
joke wasn't
yeah,
meant to pop
yeah.
out.
Oh,
Whoopsies.
that was amazing. Can you do that again? No, it was jolly good fun. It was really
Yeah.
good fun, and made some lifelong friends,
Yeah, I
which
bet.
is great. Yeah.
So interestingly, I always like to, this podcast kind of follows a very specific path. And this bit right now is actually, I'm really looking forward to hearing
Uh-huh.
about what you now do.
Oh.
Because I always think at some point, disabled people, whether you acquire it or whether you're born disabled, at some point your disability is taken into account in what career choices that you make, whether that's conscious or unconscious. Quite a lot of the time you do have to factor in what your disability is, because that could be, does it limit you in certain areas? Do you need to ask for extra access needs? Or maybe you do what I do and you just talk about disability all the time. And I was wondering for you, how did your career change when you acquired your disability? But also, what do you do now? And please wax lyrical about your company.
Okay. So in my previous life, my pre-disabled life, sorry about the dog barking, I was a hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
I trained late as a hairdresser. He'll shut up. I trained late hairdresser because when my kids got older and they were going off to secondary school, I thought, oh, now's my opportunity to actually retrain and do something really, really cool. So I trained to be a hairdresser. And then within 2 years of qualifying, I became ill. So that idea went out the bloody window, because who's going to have an amputee on one leg stood next to them with a pair of sharp scissors? Not many people. So I thought, right, okay, well, I'll do something else then. And it became clear, it became clear quite early on that getting a job as a disabled person is a bit tricky, because you look unreliable. You probably are unreliable because of different chronic illnesses you might have going on. So that, you might need to take off more sick days than somebody else. And it became quite clear that actually finding a job was going to be really tricky. So I was walking, I was an ambulatory, I had a prosthetic, and I was using a walking stick sometimes. And I decided that actually they were all a bit shit. They were all flowery, they were all metal, they were clunky. You could hear somebody coming from miles away with a clunky walking stick. And I did think there must be something better out there. And I researched materials that you could make things out of, because I'm quite handy. and I came up with this idea for an acrylic walking stick, which the first one that I thought about doing would have been a clear one, because I was at a point where I wanted to be invisible.
Yeah.
If you can understand. So I wanted an invisible walking stick, and the only way to get that would be to have a totally clear one. And that was when the idea for acrylic came up. But anyway, I ordered some rods from a place in the UK, totally out of my depth with what I was speaking about, what I was ordering. I remember it vividly, and then made a walking stick in my oven at home, and molded it around a wine bottle, molded the handle around a wine bottle, because that was all I had. I didn't know what to use, and it looked about the right kind of shape. So that was how I made my first one. And I was tickle pink with it, and I was walking around with it, and people were going, "Oh, love your walking stick. Where did you get it?" And I just said, I made it. And then one day I decided I would see what it felt like to say, "Oh, I've got a business and I make them." And it felt actually really quite funky when I said it. And I thought, I like the feel of that, saying I've got a business. And that was really how it began. It was as simple as that. It was, I mean, they say necessity is the mother of all inventions. So it's a bit like you didn't hear the podcast you wanted, so let's make it, let's do it. So I couldn't see a stick I wanted, so I thought, to hell with it, I'll make one. And it began quite small. I worked because I was still doing circus work at the same time. This idea of the walking sticks, I kind of knew that there was something in it, that there was something really good, but I still had other things. I had other dreams to follow at the time. So I didn't actually start working full-time 100% on the business until about 2019. And then I decided that the other offers of work were drying up. There was nothing coming. Nobody wanted a slightly aged, less bendy circus performer. So I decided that it was time to do the walking sticks properly full time. So I've worked mad hard at it since then, and we've just gone crazy. So my days used to involve making walking sticks, because I used to do all of it myself. But now I've got a team of people. I've got like 8 people that work with me on different days, and I have walking sticks. They make them. I have the girls in the office who pack them and send them out. I concentrate a lot more on the marketing side of things and making the business grow, and I get to do fun stuff like this and come and talk to lovely people like you. And I get to go and do conferences. I did a conference in London before Christmas where I spoke on the overuse of antibiotics, that really sexy subject. But I really did so many things. I got to do that, and I've got connections in the US now that I'm able to work with. So it's actually freed me up to be a lot more of an entrepreneur now, rather than the person in the workshop. So I have a very exciting life right now.
I just think it's like beyond amazing that your first walking stick that you made was just wrapped around a wine bottle, because I think what you said is so right. Like necessity, it was needed, and you used what you had to hand, because who were you to know like the right dimensions or the right like weight bearing, and there's so many other things that come into play that you wouldn't even think about. But at that point in time, what you had to hand and what you wanted to make, you had to do it, and you made it, and you made it work. And I think there's so much power in that, because there's so much to be said for people who just go out and do something and just know that the first time it's not going to be great, but actually the idea is fantastic. Execution first time round is never going to be that brilliant. And the way that I can compare it the best is when you first learned to walk, or when you first started to speak, could you speak eloquently and could you walk really well? No, you fell on your ass and you probably just babbled absolute garbage. So I love just people who have an idea and then just go after it, because I think there's just like so much power in it. And
now look at us, I'm
being able
still
to
falling
do
on my
that.
ass. Still
Me
falling
too. Like my balance isn't that great. And I'm pretty sure that's because my center of gravity is like not in the center, but that's by the by.
Do you need a walking stick, madam?
Maybe not right now. I know where to go if I do need one.
Definitely know where to go if you need one. Yeah. No, it's been a very exciting, creative, unknown journey that I've been on, and I'm still on, because the business isn't finished yet. We're still creating new opportunities and going out and doing new things. So it's very exciting, and I feel very proud of what I began, but I feel hugely proud of the team that I've got that help me to carry on my daily life. We've got a workshop and office at home. We're very lucky, got a big house and nobody lives in it because the kids have all gone. So we've taken over space, and we had a bit converted into an office and a workshop. So on days that I can't make it into work, which is pathetic because it's about 12 meters away, I can sit on my sofa and I can tap on my laptop, and the guys in the office know that I'm here, maybe not well enough to be sat in the office with them, but I'm here, and I'm still kind of working, and I'm still involved. And that to me is that's my dream scenario, because what I would have hated to have been the person that had to not let down, that's not the right word. You're just asking for your needs to be taken into account if you need time to be off work. But we're programmed to feel like you're letting someone down, that if you can't come in this day, I can't come in this week, I'm letting someone down. But the way that we've got the whole thing set up, it just works perfectly for me, and it accommodates everything that I need. So I am lucky, very, very, very lucky.
It's very interesting that you bring up that you think that, and that perception of letting people down. And that's something that I think disabled people inherently will always struggle with, regardless, because we have this quite archaic work system where it's like the 9 to 5 and you only have the weekends off, and you have 20 days of holiday per year, where actually that's been the same since the Victorian era. Like nothing has changed. Like the Industrial Revolution happened, but nothing in the workplace in terms of like working hours and flexibility has changed since then. And yet our world has massively changed since then. We've got new technologies. We've had a pandemic, for Christ's sake. Completely. There are so many different things that are now in play, particularly when it surrounds like work and working hours, that actually, because of that, and because of that 9 to 5 mentality that we have had for what feels like forever, the idea of having your own access needs being met can sometimes feel like you're doing your company, your workplace, your workmates a disservice, when actually it's only you that's getting the disservice from that, because you're not taking yourself into account.
It feels quite selfish in a way. Because I've said I need this, I need access, I need time, I need flexible hours, so they don't need me in there with them all the time. If I get out of bed at midday, I can work till 7 o'clock. They go at 4. It doesn't matter. The whole thing ticks over. So it does feel very selfish in a way. But to them, it's not. They don't mind. Their work day is the same. We all get our jobs done. I think it's just we beat ourselves up. But as a woman, I think that also comes with the job. We beat ourselves up a lot. Over body image, over time taken away from family to work, over all these things that we beat ourselves up over, and then throw a disability into that, and oh god, I mean, it's a wonder we get through the day. But I think we're built to do that to ourselves, and I don't know when that's going to change. When's that ever going to change?
It's such an interesting topic to have a conversation about, because it does feel almost inbuilt that women can't be selfish, because then it's like you're a bad person, you're not putting other people before yourself. But actually, if you're running at 20% and you're trying to help the people around you, well, there's like 80% missing. So you're gonna be crap whatever you do. It doesn't matter. And so just like be the bigger person and just take time out. Like you're not being selfish, you're looking after yourself, but that feels inherently uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in time. I believe sometimes my brain just says no, no more. And I have to, the only way I can deal with it is to go to sleep. That's one of my coping mechanisms. So if I get overwhelmed, and I just I can't function anymore, I take myself away and I go to sleep. And it's like a reset. And I come out of it feeling fresher. And I've learned that I just have to do that. And the people around me have learned that that's just what I have to do. And they know that it's better when I come back after. They just go, Lyndsay, just go to sleep. Just go, sit down. So yeah, that's one of my coping mechanisms. Really, is that. I don't know how does that happen to you? Do you?
I quite often get told to go and have a nap.
Go and have a nap. What, like a naughty girl? Go and have a nap.
Yeah, like, oh, have you had a nap today? And I'm like, no. And people are like, well, you need one.
I love that.
And but I completely understand that, because I do think, particularly when you're either a super creative person or you're someone who has got a lot of drive and ambition, you almost need more rest, because your brain is going at like 100 miles an hour, and like God knows my brain goes all the time. And people are like, oh, you should rest more. And I'm like, rest is great. I was like, but I don't actually get any pleasure from rest. Like I find it quite boring. So for me to rest it's kind of futile, because I'm just sat there and I'm frustrated because I'm like, oh, I could be doing something else. Whereas actually for me, it's better for me to take like smaller chunks of time off rather than like going all at once and then burn out, and then going all at once and burn out. So for me, it's much better to be like couple of days rest, couple of days rest, couple of days rest, because that way I'm not a dick to other people.
Not a dick. No, we don't like to be dicks.
I was wondering, from being a non-amputee to then suddenly becoming an amputee, particularly surrounding body image and women, what was that experience like for you, transitioning from being 2 legs, 2 arms to then being 1 leg, 2 arms?
It was awful. And and I wish I could sugarcoat it for other people that might be looking at going through it, but don't underestimate what it does to your head, because I just thought, I'm strong enough. I'll deal with it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I was also on a high because of, I mean, I literally ran on adrenaline for about 6 weeks after I had the amputation, and I was super positive, and I was yes, I'm going to walk, I'm going to go. That's all I was focused on, and it hadn't really dawned on me that I looked really different. And then I started going out in a wheelchair to start with, when I first started going out, because I couldn't walk. I didn't have a leg that fit me straight away, and I could see people looking at me. And I imagined that I knew what they were thinking. And that was the most dangerous thing that I did. I imagined they were looking at me and thinking, thank God I'm not her. That was what I thought they were thinking. As a matter of fact, I didn't know what they were thinking. Now with years down the line, I can imagine they were thinking, oh, she's got nice hair, or, oh, she looks different, or, oh, I wonder how that happened, or I wonder, there could be a host of things that they were thinking. I remember being outside a shoe shop, and there was a sign in the window that said, buy one, get one free. And I heard some blokes make a joke about me. That really, really cut deep. And I thought, God, I'm a laughing stock now. So that kind of that turned me, and those blokes will never know that what they said did what it did to me. But that kind of turned me, and then I crashed. I completely crashed, and I couldn't bear the thought of myself just being with 1 leg. And it the only thing that helps is time, and it's the one thing that I can't give to anybody, or that anybody could have given to me. It was just time, and after a year, after 2 years, I didn't give a shit. I didn't care less. I loved my leg, because I loved my prosthetic. I was walking, and Christ, I was a circus performer. There was a lot to love about that body then, but to begin with, it was hard. It was very hard. Yeah.
And I think it's so fascinating for me, particularly because I don't know what life was like with two arms. So like for me, I'm not an amputee. Like that's not my identity. And so I always find it incredibly interesting because I don't know any different. And so I've always been like, I am me, I am who I am. There's no difference for me. Like I don't know what life was like. But on the flip side, someone who is an amputee like yourself, there was a life before you became an amputee, and you experienced like life without disability, and then suddenly you become disabled or you acquire a disability. And I always just find it fascinating because there seems to always be a grieving process, and people kind of forget that because suddenly like life has changed. And now you're part of a community that maybe you didn't think you were going to be a part of it at some point in your life. And because our community is so underrepresented and it's so misrepresented, that actually it can seem quite scary and quite daunting. And you know, how to navigate this space is now completely new, and it's a different way of life.
And
so
you've got to find that community as well.
Yeah.
That was really hard because this was back in 2010. I lost my legs. It's 13 years ago. Yes, we had mobile phones, and yes, we had all that sort of stuff. But Instagram was still a bit of a baby. Facebook was still in its infancy. These kind of places were still just developing. And it didn't seem an obvious place to go to find people that would be like me. And how do you find them? What do you do? Do you just say, hello, is anyone else an amputee out there? Ironically, that would work. A simple question. It would work today. You would get a horde of messages saying, yeah, I am, message me. But back then, it was really, really difficult to know where to find people like myself. And like I said, the pivotal thing for me was 2012 with the Paralympics. It was life-changing.
And because of that, it's almost like you were immersed in it, and you found your tribe pretty quickly. And when you see people daily, and there's something to be said in like mutual suffering, particularly surrounding sports, particularly surrounding things that make your body just feel a bit rubbish sometimes. Like if you listen to this podcast, you know that I do CrossFit. I love CrossFit. And there is something really to be said in the friendships that I've found in CrossFit, because we go through this absolute mutual pain and hell together nearly every day. But all my CrossFit friends are very close friends of mine. And it's because we have that shared experience of hell.
It was hell. I kept a diary through all of my circus training. I'm really glad I did, because it's interesting to look back now. And some days all I wrote was shit, 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 shit. Page full of shit, because I was literally covered in bruises, shoulders knackered, needing massages. I was taped up with physio tape. But oh God, it was exhilarating. You had to turn up every day and try. And it taught me a lot about how much you can put your body through. I learned a lot about, I probably broke a lot as well. That's probably the reasons why got knackered shoulders now, because I was dangling from trapezes and stuff. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't. No. It's a bit like you ask anybody with a disability, and they probably wouldn't change the way their life path has turned out. Because let's face it, we all have bad days, but it's not a bad life.
One hot day doesn't make a summer,
and you've got to remember that. And I think a lot of people would say that they wouldn't change anything. Have you ever wondered if this had happened to you, if you'd lost an arm sort of later in life as you are now? Have you ever wondered how you would cope with it, what you would think, what you would do, how it would feel?
No, I haven't. And I think that's because I just don't know what it would be like to navigate this world with two hands. Like I've thought about what would it look like to navigate the world with two hands. And then I realized that for me, it would just be so boring. Like it would be so boring.
Too easy. Like, hard to do.
But I think that's because my entire life I've always had to adapt, and it's become second nature. Like I now don't know how I do things. Like if someone asked me to explain to them how do I chop up a vegetable, or I couldn't tell. I'd just be like, I'd cut it up,
Yeah.
but I couldn't actually tell you like how it works in my brain, how I get to the point where I can see what I need to do.
Yeah.
So not really, because I think I've never known what it would be like with two hands. And
Yeah.
almost for me, I'm kind of someone that's like, if I know it's never going to happen, I don't need to
Mm.
think about it. Like if I know the rock is heavy, I
Yeah.
don't need to pick it up.
Yeah,
Like
but
I
you
don't
do,
need to prove a
you're
point
a
to myself.
CrossFit person. You'd pick up anything heavy. You just look
Yeah,
at it
that's
and
true.
go, that isn't heavy enough for me. Make it heavier. I need to feel more pain.
Yeah, no, my shoulders are in bits this week because I decided to go back weightlifting, and I was like, oh, just I'm 5 foot and a fluff. I weigh like less than 51 kilograms. I shouldn't be trying to lift my body weight. Like I'm not I'm not
Do
strong for
you
that.
really? Do you lift your body weight? Do you?
And my goal is to lift my body weight, but I just at the
Oh,
minute like I'm 6 kilograms off it, which just like 6 kilograms seems like the heaviest 6 kilograms ever.
I bet. I
Every
bet.
time I'm like, oh my god, I just want to inch a bit closer. And every time I'm like half a kilogram, I'm like, no, it's too much.
6 kilograms, that's like barely a handbag. Come on. I
six
mean, you
grams,
could.
it's 6 bags of sugar. That's the sad bit. 6 bags of sugar. So I like to ask everybody, do you have a piece of advice for a younger version of yourself?
Oh, yeah. Dance and sing. Do the things that you thought would make you look stupid and that people would look at you and go, look at that idiot. Do it. Do the crazy things. It's that old eat the cake, wear the dress, do that.
Yeah.
I would just say be less uptight, tell your kids off a bit more. Note to self, note to younger self. Yeah, don't be so slack on them. No, I wasn't really. But yeah, definitely don't be uptight. Own your confidence, actually grow into your confidence, and just believe that you've got this power and the strength, because as a younger person I didn't feel any of that. I look back to my 20s and 30s and I was hugely unconfident, and
Yeah.
that's what I would tell myself, because within all that you'll find a lot of growth and a lot of adventure. If you just step out of, nothing grows inside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
There you go, summed it up. Yeah.
Ironic that your company now makes other people feel confident.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
That's like it's such a full circle moment, because I think
Yeah.
you're providing people with, you're right, traditionally walking sticks are ugly. They're not the prettiest things in the world. And
Yeah.
also I think we do have a massive assumption when it comes to any form of mobility aid that it's for people who are elderly, when actually like that's not the case. It's really not the case. And yet you're making these products for people so that they can feel really confident in using mobility aids. And I always like to state that like I don't use mobility aids, but I know so many people who do, and actually it's liberation, and
Mhm.
you're giving people that confidence to be liberated. And how like perfect is it that your piece of advice to your younger self is to like just grow into your confidence?
That's right. Just do it. Yeah. We get emails every day that would make you cry, that do
Yeah.
make us cry, from people who have got a walking stick and it's changed their lives, because it's given them confidence without shame. It's given them the mobility and the stability to go out and be
Yeah.
seen, and to be willing to be seen. And what happens is people will no longer go to them and say, what's wrong with you? People
Mm-hmm.
will go, oh my God, love your stick. And it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
And people, like a disability, someone with a disability quite often wishes they were invisible. And that's the feeling that I had when I first became a walking stick user. But when someone comes to you and wants to start a conversation with you, they've seen you and they see something in you that they want to interact with. And it's a brand
Yeah.
new feeling for a lot of people. And honestly, the messages, yeah, they're amazing.